30 pieces of silver. That was the price of betrayal. But what most people don't know is that Judas' final 24 hours were filled with fear, regret, and a decision so horrifying it changed history forever. Because after he betrayed Jesus, something happened inside Judas that no one expected, and what he did next still raises one terrifying question. Did Judas truly regret his betrayal, or was something darker already taking control? Jerusalem was restless. It was the night before Passover, and the city pulsed with tension. Thousands of pilgrims filled the narrow streets. Torches flickered against ancient stone walls. Whispers spread like wildfire. Something was about to happen, and in the shadows, one man walked alone. Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, a man who had followed Jesus for years, a man who had seen miracles with his own eyes, but now he carried something heavy in his robe. 30 silver coins, cold, hard, heavy. Payment for betrayal. Yet even as the coins clinked together, his heart was already beginning to collapse, because Judas knew something the others didn't. The plan had already begun, but what pushed Judas to this moment was far more complicated than simple greed, and what happened next would seal Jesus' fate forever. Hours earlier, Judas sat at the table, the Last Supper. The room smelled of bread and oil lamps. The disciples spoke quietly, but Jesus was different that night, calm, silent, watching, and then he spoke words that froze the room. "One of you will betray me." The air turned heavy. The disciples looked at each other in confusion. "Surely not I, Lord?" One by one, they asked. Yet Judas stayed quiet. Too quiet. Because inside him, a storm was already raging. Had he gone too far? Had he made a mistake he couldn't undo? But before he could speak, Jesus looked directly at him. Not with anger, not with hate, but with something far worse. Understanding. And that moment would haunt Judas forever. But Judas still left the table, and what he did next set the final hours into motion. Night had fallen. The Garden of Gethsemane was silent, except for the sound of footsteps. Romang. Soldiers moved carefully between the olive trees. Temple guards followed close behind, and leading them, Judas. His breathing was shallow. His hands trembled. He knew exactly where Jesus would be, because he had walked that path many times before. Then he saw him. Jesus stood calmly in the darkness. No fear. No panic. Only silence. Judas stepped forward. Closer. Closer. Every step felt heavier than the last. And then, the moment history would never forget. Judas leaned in and kissed Jesus on the cheek. A simple gesture, a greeting. But that kiss was the signal. The soldiers rushed forward. Torches lit the trees. Metal clashed. And in seconds, Jesus was captured. Yet in the chaos, Jesus spoke one haunting sentence. "Judas, do you betray the Son of Man with a kiss?" And in that moment, everything inside Judas shattered. But the betrayal was only the beginning, because what happened after the arrest was far more terrifying than the betrayal itself. Morning came, the city awoke. And word spread quickly. Jesus had been condemned. Sentenced. To death. And when Judas heard, his world collapsed. This was never supposed to happen. Not like this. Maybe he thought Jesus would escape. Maybe he believed nothing serious would happen. But now, there was no turning back. The weight of guilt crushed him. The silver coins, once valuable, now felt cursed. And in desperation, Judas ran. Not away from the city, but straight back to the temple. His footsteps echoed across stone floors. Priests turned in surprise. And with shaking hands, Judas threw the silver onto the ground. Coins scattered across the floor, ringing like thunder. "I have sinned," he cried. "I have betrayed innocent blood." But the priests didn't care. Their response was cold. "What is that to us? That is your responsibility." And in that moment, Judas realized something terrifying. He was completely alone, but his next decision would become one of the darkest moments in history. The streets outside were silent. Judas walked alone. No disciples. No friends. No hope. Only regret. Only fear. And the horrifying truth: he couldn't undo what he had done. Somewhere beyond the city walls, he stopped. The wind moved through the trees, the same wind that once carried his laughter with the other disciples. Now it carried only silence. And there, in his final moments, Judas made a choice that would forever mark his name in history. A decision so tragic that even centuries later, people still struggle to understand it. Because Judas didn't die as a villain celebrating victory. He died as a man crushed by his own guilt. But here is the mystery that still divides historians and believers. Did Judas truly repent? Or was his regret too late? Some believe Judas wanted forgiveness, but didn't believe he deserved it. Others believe his actions fulfilled prophecy, a role that had to happen. Yet one question still echoes across time. Was Judas a villain or a tragic figure trapped in destiny? Because without Judas, there would have been no arrest, no trial, no crucifixion. And without the crucifixion, there would have been no resurrection. Somewhere in history, a handful of silver coins were left behind, cold, silent, forgotten. But their story never ended, because Judas' final 24 hours were not just about betrayal. They were about regret, consequences, and the terrifying weight of a single decision. And even today, his story leaves us with one haunting question. If you were in Judas' place, would you have made a different choice?